Hi, and welcome back to Old School. So, we're coming to the end of season 3, and I thought I would hop on for the finale like I always do and just kind of recap what went on and how much fun we had and give you a little sneak peek about what's going to happen in season 4. I have tried since I started this podcast to take a look at how things are going and who we've had on and the value they've brought to it. And I love every single one of them, even in my first year where I was fumbling and bumbling a little bit, but finding my way. And I am genuinely grateful that the suggestion was made that I start a podcast. And I feel like we have grown together over the course of the last 3 seasons. And it has just been, it's so enjoyable for me. The people I have met, some of them are friends outside of, the podcast or the internet world, most of whom I have never met in person. So that's what's even more interesting because I've often, I'm divorced, I live alone. And so, getting out and being with people is not overly what I do, but I would like that. And I do like being in someone's company so you can really genuinely get a feel for what you're communicating to one another. But these folks have genuinely, some of them turned out to be friends for several years, some of the folks that I had on my podcast the first year. So it's just really been a joy. A lot of them have come along to support me in my book launches. I've been on their book launches, and it's just been just a joy to get to meet everybody and see the divine appointments the Lord has for me. And I don't really feel the need to make this crazy and try and go every week because I that would kill me. My between my day job and especially during tax season, I need to have that gap. And I think that every other week or twice a month has been really good. And I don't know if somebody wants to speak up out there and tell me that they're just diehard fans and would like me to go every week, then we can consider that. But the analytics on any one of the platforms doesn't tell me that a bunch of you are watching all the way through to the end. And while that could be disheartening, I'm excited that you're all here and that you all watch for whatever amount of time. It would be awesome if you would go back and kind of look through the episodes and maybe pick one that sounds interesting, but you just don't watch them all the way through and just try one that way. And comment when you're done. You might be surprised because there were people that I've had on for their book, for example, and we went down some amazing rabbit holes, if you will. Normally that's used negatively, but we've gone down some very great deep dives into some things that I think impact all of us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Just really some great things that I feel like, and my guests have said so off air, that they didn't realize that that's where they were going to go with the conversation. And I love that. I've had a couple of guests tell me come back and ask for seconds because they enjoyed so much the fact that I didn't have some rigid agenda, and yet in the midst of them telling their story and me asking a couple follow-up questions, they just felt like I had kind of hit the nail on the head, and I love that. And I love that you get a little surprise out of it, that it's not just about their book, but it's about their story. And that is what I genuinely believe is the beginning of healing for all of us, is getting our story out there on paper, if you want to record it, whatever you want to do to get the beginning of your story going. I think that the healing journey is there. And I don't think there's any one of us that doesn't have some stuff, right? Now, I know you've all been around long enough to know, I was beaten as a child and I was sexually abused and all of these things. And maybe you're feeling like, well, wow, I wasn't all of that. I don't know about, healing or telling my story. Well, but we all have a story and we all have different types of wounds. And so there's nothing wrong with beginning that story and wanting to get it out there. And if any of you do decide, because of, visiting us here at Old School, to tell your story and put it down on paper. I am a wealth of information on self-publishing and editors and what you need to do to get that going. So I'd be thrilled to let that be part of the outcome of the podcast as well. So season 3, so much fun. We had, for example, at the beginning of the year, Tracy Martin. She does a conference here called Refined, and she came on the podcast first, which was an incredible episode. I highly recommend you all go watch because it's on the overall wellness. But then I got to go to her conference in the spring. And then when she had it in the fall, I asked her if I could kind of do a podcast row. It's the only time I've done that so far. I've talked to some other people about getting to do that, and we'll see what happens in season 4. But I get to sit outside the conference and record the other speakers there. So I had about 5 recordings of about 7 minutes each. And then my producer, Justin, helped me drop that as a series. And those got a lot of views. So it was really fun. I think I'll try some things like that when I go into season 4 and maybe into season 5 and just see how much fun we can have with that. I am going to set season 4 up that every 3 months, so once a quarter, I'm going to ask some of the guests who were in that quarter to come back for a live panel, the ones where I get the most interaction. So if you go on and comment and maybe somebody covers something, you're like, ooh, I wanted a different follow-up question, Michele. So you reach out and let me know that. And I will ask those folks that we have the most engagement if they would come back and be on a live panel where you can come on and ask some questions. We'll do it through my Riverside platform and on YouTube probably. And I would just love to get all of your feedback and have you jump on and let me know. So you do need to watch a little longer of the episodes to see who maybe you'd like to be able to ask some deeper dive questions, because we have some great folks lined up for season 4. People, sleep experts, people in the mental health space, people in the emotional health spaces. So I'd really love it if you could take the time to listen even a little longer and give me your feedback about who you'd like to see on the live. We did try something new in season 3. I had these episodes, as all of you know at Old School, we talk about health and healing in the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And so I tried to have what I called a raw episode where the camera and the tables got turned on me. So the questions were being asked of me by someone who was in that space. And my producer, Justin, helped me with the spiritual one and had asked me a lot of questions in regard to what journey that writing my story took me on. Then I went to a chiropractor. He and his wife are both chiropractors, actually, Dr. Mike, and had him on the podcast first. And then I asked him if he'd be willing to be the one interviewing me. And so he did tests. And then we went back and we recorded me receiving the information. And so I called those raw, physical, raw, mental, raw, spiritual. And so those were really fun. And I think that those got some good views. Maybe again, if you wouldn't mind going back and doing a little dive and letting me know if you thought that kind of format was worth the time, because those were a little more engaged in process as well. It wasn't just about somebody's book or story. It was about the actual, actionable steps you can take to figure out your healing journey, or just even where you'd want to go in your story or understanding your purpose. So those were fun. I had a good time doing those. I had on this year directors and actors and pastors who've written their stories. 2 pastors who wrote a book about how to make the Bible come alive, and it's called Bringing Heaven Here. And so that was awesome. That one may or may not, will have released before I do this. We had Howard Quigley Chang, who was one of the designers of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. and he is designing robots that are biblical characters and have scripture on them, and hoping to maybe see some sort of TV series or something come out of it. So kind of reverse engineering it, having the action figures now and telling the stories as we go. So that was fun. I had a lot of authors. I had, Jason Van Ruler, Get Past Your Past. His book was great, but it was also awesome to kind of, cheat a little and have an emotional session with him about those very kind of deep dive things of trying to work through and walk through our experiences, and how, yes, they're going to shape what we do and don't do, but like not letting ourselves stay stuck in that situation. So really a great season overall, I feel. Not that I've ever thought any of my seasons were horrible or there wasn't a guest I didn't like, or anything like that. But I do feel like we're getting a little more engaged, diving a little deeper. And I hope that's showing up in your experience here at Old School. I know I'm having a ball, and probably would even if nobody watched. Although that would be a little disheartening. So I would love it if going forward, if you could help me out in the shaping of each season by getting engaged with it and letting me know, okay, these kind of guests are awesome. And not that everybody else is awful, but just, this is where I would like to see you head with that, because this is the personal area that means something to me. I genuinely would take each and every one of your comments and your input seriously and take it to heart while I look at these things. I'm watching kind of what other people do, but I don't feel like I'm ultimate. I mean, maybe I'm like somebody else. I just am so busy between writing the books and publishing them, between the podcast and then my day job. I didn't really have the time to necessarily go out and watch a bunch and compare. And I think sometimes we can lose ourselves in that comparison game. So I'd like to stay true to Old School with Michele Vrabel as Michele Vrabel. But I do want it to have meaning and actionable steps and something that you can take away. And so my intent is to do that, as well as start to have some things that you can reach out for, some downloads and what have you, that can give you a little bit more to take away from either the panels or some of the specific uh, episodes. I have a sleep expert who's going to be on in season 4, and she and I just hit it off so well because I'm such a geek and such a researcher, and I've looked into so much because my own sleep patterns and my own sleep health was, having issues. And it was so much fun. We got done recording and she was like, "Oh, I learned some stuff from you too." And so we just had a great time. And I think those kind of episodes are going to really speak to the heart of what a lot of us are walking through. So I'd really love your feedback. I'd love it if you could tough it out, or maybe listen while you're in the car in traffic and make it all the way through an episode and give me your genuine feedback. That would just be great. But I do love season 3. I love the interaction I have had with all of you. I am going to continue as long as the Lord tarries and my mind stays intact. So much am I grateful for all of you. And even if I don't get to hear from you or see your little face, I'm thrilled when I see that some of you are watching, and I do love that. So please take the time to like, subscribe, engage. You can go to my website, michellevrabel.com, and get on the newsletter so you can see some upcoming episodes as well as any books that are coming out. I would just love to hear from all of you and just like give you a big air hug. Thank you so much for every bit of this wild, wonderful ride. And I want to thank you for coming to class. And class dismissed.